passage 3 from the set, and here we're looking at an A-B comparative passage about the law, and the intro here tells us that they're both adapted from law review articles. Okay, so let's take a look at passage A first. We'll look at the questions, then we'll come back, read passage B, and return to the questions. So passage A says, in Canadian and United States common law, blackmail is unique among major crimes. Why? Right, because, well, here's why. No one has yet adequately explained why it ought to be illegal. Really? That strikes me as really odd. I mean, think of all the other major crimes. I guess, yeah, you'd expect there will be good explanations about why murder is illegal, armed robbery is illegal, but like blackmail, there's no reason, there's no explanation for why it's illegal. The heart of the problem, known as the Blackmail Paradox, is that, here's the heart of the problem, it's that two acts, each of which is legally permissible, separately become illegal when combined. What the hell are you talking about? What are the two acts that independently are legal but jointly become illegal? Which does seem weird, by the way. Before you read on, it's like, yeah, why is it that if A is legal by itself and B is legal by itself, the combination of A and B is illegal? That does seem weird. So if I threaten to expose a criminal act or embarrassing private information, unless I am paid money, I have committed blackmail. True enough, that is what blackmail is, right? So, but the right to free speech protects my right to make such a disclosure, referencing the threaten to expose criminal act or embarrassing private information. Okay, I see. So this is the A Act. The A Act is protected by free speech, and then the B Act is being asking for money, and in many circumstances, have a legal right to seek money. So there's the A and the B independently being legal, but then jointly becoming illegal. So why is it illegal to combine them? Interesting. Okay, so this end of the first paragraph, it's the Blackmail Paradox, right? That's clearly the problem. You know, I this is like not the lowest resolution you can go. You can just say problem, right? That would be even lower resolution. Here's you get what a flavor, a taste of what the problem is, the Blackmail Paradox. Now, where are we going from here? You know, what's the second paragraph all about? Well, let's see. The lack of a successful theory of blackmail has damaging consequences. Okay, so connecting to this, we just said there's no successful theory, and the author's like, well, look, it's important that we don't have a successful theory. It's not like, oh, whatever, who cares that we don't have an important theory. Sorry, a successful theory. The fact that we don't have a successful theory has damaging consequences. Drawing a clear line between legal and illegal acts has proved impossible without one, and consequently, most blackmail statutes broadly prohibit behavior that no one really believes is criminal and rely on the good judgment of prosecutors not to enforce relevant statutes precisely as written. Yeah, that is quite damaging. Okay, they're saying because you lack a theory about what is blackmail, you just can't write very precise legislation on what you're prohibiting and what you're not prohibiting. So what you end up doing is you just end up prohibiting like everything. You know, okay, I'm exaggerating, right? You end up prohibiting way more things than you actually intend to, right? You end up prohibiting things that no one really thinks is even criminal. Well, why the hell are you doing that? It's because you can't actually tell it's like if you want to capture all the dogs in the world, but you suck at like identifying dogs. So you're just like, just give me all the furry four-legged things. Well, that's a wide net. You're going to catch a lot of things that aren't dogs. Right, and that's what they're saying. It's like that's not good, you know, because we're talking about the law. You really don't want prosecutors to have that much power, and just like we're basically hoping that these prosecutors don't power trip because they have the authority. You know, the statute is written overly broad to give them power to punish people that with things that no one really thinks is criminal, but you're just kind of hoping that they are able to exercise discretion, their prosecutorial discretion, rather than abuse their power. So that is a bad consequence. So if this is the problem, super low resolution is just, here's a negative consequence of the problem. Okay, so if you're going with problem here, just, you know, negative consequence, I'm going to go a little bit higher resolution. I just say broad prosecutorial discretion. Okay, broad prosecutorial discretion. That's just not good. You really don't want to. You just want to limit it, tailor it to just what they need, right? Why count on these prosecutors being moral angels, right? And instead, just expect them to be morally normal, and then don't entice them to mess up, right? So here we have one more paragraph left, and really, where is this going to go? The author says, but you know what? However, so it indicates a change. However, it is possible to articulate a coherent theory of blackmail. Oh, so the fact that we don't have one, our author thinks it's actually, you know, well, here, I have the solution, right? If this is the problem, this is the negative consequence, here's our author's like, I wrapped it up in a nice bow tie. Here's the solution to all your problems. It's what is it? Yeah, it's the wrongfulness of blackmail transaction triangular structure. Okay, the blackmailer obtains what he wants by using supplemental leverage. Leverage depends on the third party. What? The blackmail victim pays to avoid being harmed by persons other than the blackmailer. Well, okay, this makes sense. This sentence I get, right? Because let's say I'm being threatened to you're threatening me. You want money from me. You want to blackmail me. I'm like, the harm here really isn't coming from you. Mostly isn't coming from you. I mean, I'm sure there's some psychological harm to being threatened, of course. But like, it's like, let's say I have a body in my backyard and you're my neighbor and you saw it, right? You're threatening to tell on me, right? So the major harm is threatened would come from the cops, right? It's not really you. So I guess I see what this means. I'm paying you money to avoid being harmed by the state, right? For example, and here they go on to use a criminal example. They didn't have to use a criminal example. I guess they could have used, like, up here they mention embarrassing private information. So let's say I'm some like Hollywood movie actor and I'm married and I have kids, but I actually have tons of affairs. Okay, well then cops probably don't care, but you know who, like, tabloids would care, and presumably my wife would care. Right, so then you can leverage the tabloid, the media's power to get money out of me. So, but here they went for a criminal situation. The blackmailer threatens to turn in a criminal unless pay money. Blackmailer is bargaining with the state's chip. Yeah, so that's what they're talking about here. Using supplemental leverage. So now this is starting to make a little bit of sense, right? These two sentences kind of start to make sense once you read on. Thus, blackmail is criminal because it involves a misuse of a third party for the blackmailer's own benefit. Okay, so the triangular structure here they're talking about is you got one actor over here, you have another actor over here, and then you have a third actor over here. Okay, so on the one hand, you have the blackmailer. On the other hand, you have the victim. And the bargaining this is the third party. So it could be the government, in which case you, the blackmailer, you're threatening the victim, but you're not the one that's going to do any, like, you don't have the power to impose justice, but you are threatening to leverage the prosecutor's office's power to harm. So that's how you get money. Now, if the third party is the media, well, then, it's the same thing. So in either case, you are, the key to wrongfulness is a triangular structure. The blackmailer gets what they want by using supplemental leverage that actually belongs to someone else, the third party, right? So all that kind of makes sense. So now our author is saying, this is why it's illegal, because you're misusing someone else's power, right? You're misusing it for your own benefit. So ultimately, you can say this is the main point, right? Which would be true. You can say this is the answer if you're going low res that way. Problem, negative consequence. Here is our author's answer. You can say it like that, right? I'll just say author's theory. Right? Author's theory of why blackmail is illegal. Okay, so now we've read the first passage. We have no information about passage B, which is perfect because now we're going to look at the questions now. First question, 14, we have to reduce the question stem to the version we can answer, which is central topic of just passage A. What is the central topic of passage A? Is it why triangular transactions are illegal? No, it's not. That's not the central topic. We don't talk about triangular transactions in general. We talk about a specific kind of triangular transaction, that of blackmail. We talk about why that one is legal. This is like zooming out to talk about generally triangular. No, that's not the central topic. B says the role of the right to free speech in a given legal system. Sure, free speech was mentioned, but to call it a central topic is way too much of a stretch. Okay, like free speech was kind of briefly mentioned over here in the context of generating the paradox. How come an action protected by free speech combined with another action that's legal, together the two actions become illegal? So examining the role of free speech is not the central topic. How blackmail has been handled in a given legal system, that's pretty good. I mean, yeah, that's got to be the central topic, right? Because we're talking about Canada, United States common law, how we're handling blackmail. It's handled poorly, and the author has a solution. So C seems really great. D says a history of blackmail is a legal concept. No. What history, right? Like, where did this all start? I mean, you talk about common law, so it has its roots in tradition. Where like, how did all this start? I have no idea. So there's no way you talked about it, far from it being a central topic. And E says, why no good explanations of the illegality of blackmail exists? I don't know why. Our author offers one, right? I don't really know why. I mean, I guess the author kind of says it is a paradox, right? Which implies it's kind of a hard thing to explain. But why are no good explanations? I don't know. I mean, the author seems to offer ones, right? So maybe you can get rid of, if you feel comfortable, just get rid of E. If you don't, just kind of maybe gently get rid of it, or maybe do nothing with it. But whatever you do, at the end of this first round on question 14, really, you should be spotlighting answer choice C, because that's the best answer choice so far. Question 15 says, in using the phrase the state's chip, line 29, the author of passage A most clearly means to refer to what? So this is a meaning of a phrase in context. And they already started telling us part of the meaning. It starts with a government, right? Referring to a government's what? So the important thing is that it's in context. Like, if you forget the context, okay, look, any of these could be the right answer choice. We're talking about an analogy. I mean, in different situations, different contexts, it could refer to this, it could refer to this, or this, or this, right? So the context is very important. Now let's take a look at line 29, where it says the state's chip. And let's take a look a little before, a little after. We're talking about the triangular structure of the blackmail. So I, the blackmailer, says to my neighbor, hey, I'm going to turn you in to the cops unless you pay me like $100,000. Okay, so how am the leverage I'm using is the government's leverage, right? That's not my leverage. So that's what the state's chip is referred to. I think they're calling up a poker analogy, right? Where like I somehow reached across a table and grabbed the government's chips and started playing with the government's chips. You can't do that. So okay, let's see which answer choice kind of fits. I think you're probably down to maybe A and B. Well, let's try to get rid of C, D, and E first. Legitimate interest in preventing crimes before they occur. Well, yes, but this is like a thing has already happened. Like I'm not, of course the government's interested in preventing crimes before they occur. That's the best. Right, but here we're talking about a criminal, you've already done something. There's a dead body. It's already buried, right? It's just too late for this. It can't be that. Exclusive reliance on private citizens as a source of info. I mean, this is just crazy, right? Like, government exclusively relies on private citizens as a source of information. That doesn't even make any sense. Legal ability to compel its citizens to testify in court regarding crimes they have witnessed, but that's, I mean, sure, the government has that legal ability to compel testimony, but what the hell does that have to do with this? I'm not invoking the government. I'm not like, hey, give me money or I'm going to get the government to depose you, right? Then you're going to have to sit in a boring, stuffy meeting room for like 8 hours for the next 2 weeks. Okay, you better give me some money. That's not what's happening here. Okay, so we're either down to A or B, and they both look good. A says the government's legal authority to determine what actions are crimes. That sounds good, right? Like, I want the government to determine that your action is a crime, right? And here B says the legitimate interest in learning about crimes committed in jurisdiction. Yeah, this is good too. It's like, that's what I'm telling on you, so the government would know, the cops would know that you buried a body in your backyard in their jurisdiction. Right? So both seem good. Now, see I think it's really difficult to distinguish between the two, but if you read A, I feel like you just read A right, for lack of a better way to say it. If you just read A right, you realize it's actually saying something quite different. The legal authority to determine what actions are crimes. What branch of the government has the legal authority to determine what actions are crimes? Well, the legislative branch, for one, right? They have legislative powers. They're the ones that get to pass laws that say X and Y and Z are criminal activity. Now, the other branches, the prosecutor's office, have what they alluded to already, prosecutorial discretion, which is they could just choose not to, like, they could be like, I don't know, I don't have enough evidence, I just don't want to prosecute you. So neither one of those is the thing that I'm bargaining with. I'm not saying like, hey, unless you give me some money, I'm gonna lobby the Congress really hard and make burying dead bodies in your backyard illegal, right? That's not what I'm saying. But that is what A is suggesting, right? A is like, oh, what you mean here is the government's legal authority to determine what actions are criminal. No. What I'm leveraging here is that you don't want the government to find out that you did something wrong. You did a criminal activity. That's what I'm threatening. That's how I'm able to threaten you to get paid. right? So I'm betting you don't want to know. Sorry, not you don't want to know. I'm betting that you don't want the government to know that you did something wrong. And I'm betting the government does want to know that you did something wrong. See, that's how I'm able to leverage this into money for me, which is what B is saying. The government's legitimate interest in learning about crimes committed in its jurisdiction, right? And not what A is saying. Question 16 says, which one of the following statements is most strongly supported by the information given in the passages? Notice they're not specifying which passage is coming from. Maybe it's just A, maybe it's just B, maybe it's a combination of A and B that's supporting it. So it's kind of hard to say, but you look at the answers and, I mean, this one says Roman law and Canadian. It's like, okay, probably can't do this, right? So it's not a bad idea just to move on. We'll come back to question 16 after having read passage B. Question 17 is a really great question to do our AB approach because if you just take a look at the question stem, I think very quickly you'll realize it's actually quite challenging. The task is quite challenging. It says, which one of the following is a statement true of blackmail under U.S. Canadian common law according to passage A, but false of blackmail under Roman legal context according to passage B? So really the full question stem is asking us to find something that is true for U.S. Canadian under passage A, false for Roman, and simultaneously false under Roman law for passage B. And I'm just not going to do it. That sounds really hard. Okay, you know what sounds like an easier task? Just doing half of it. That sounds easier to me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do half of it. I'm going to find something that is a statement that is true of blackmail under U.S. Canadian common law according to passage A, and that's it. I'll deal with the second half later. Right? So now this is likely going to be explicitly stated because, well, I don't know. I mean, it could be on a spectrum to all the way over strongly implied. Right, it could be implied that it's true, but so I take that back when I said it's likely to be explicitly stated. It could be either explicitly stated or all the way over to on the spectrum to likely implied. But let's take a look. Okay, A says it, referring to blackmail. Right, blackmail combines two acts that are each legal separately. Well, yes, definitely true because that's the first paragraph. That's what gives rise to the paradox. It is a transaction with a triangular structure. Well, yeah, that's definitely true too. Right, as laid out. This is just how blackmail works. You got a blackmailer, you got a victim. It's not blackmail if I'm like, hey, give me $10,000 or I go home. That's not effective blackmail anyway. So, right, there's a triangular structure. C says the laws pertaining to blackmail are meant to be enforced precisely as written. Well, that's explicitly false. It's not meant to be enforced precisely as written. Or in fact, we're counting on prosecutors not to do that. D says the blackmail victim pays to avoid being harmed by persons other than the blackmailer. Right, that's the whole leveraging with someone else's chips. Right, that's correct true under A. And E says Canadian, U.S. common law have no special category pertaining to blackmail. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? U.S. common law have no special category pertaining to blackmail. I mean, blackmail is a major crime, and it's unique in that there's no good explanation for why it's legal. So, yeah, I'm really not sure. I mean, like, I think you can just get rid of this because there's absolutely no support saying that there's no special category pertaining to blackmail. Or I think you can even make a stronger case for getting rid of it and saying, well, they just said blackmail is a major crime, right? So this blackmail statute is super broad, cast a wide net. So there is a special category, right? So I think either case is fine. Of course, either case is fine, but I think you can actually make a stronger case that blackmail is actually a special category under U.S. common law. So this is explicitly wrong. But anyway, even if you don't accept the argument, you should eliminate E just because there's no information here that supports it. Okay, so question 17, we're down to A, B, and D, and then we'll come back and evaluate these three answer choices according to the instructions given for passage B after we read passage B. Question 18 is also like question 17 in that the question stem is asking us to do something quite challenging. It says, based on what can be inferred from the passages, which one of the following acts would have been illegal under Roman law but would not have been illegal under U.S. and Canadian? In other words, legal, right? So already it's starting to get kind of tough. You have to drop the double negative here. And they're requesting of us to do two things simultaneously. And I just want to say no. I don't want to do it simultaneously. It's already hard enough to do one thing, right? Like, I don't want to juggle. So let's just do the one thing, right? Based on what can be inferred from the passages, which one of the following acts would have been legal under U.S. and Canadian law. So we're looking at something that's legal. So what would be legal under U.S. Canadian law? You really your mind shouldn't be going to our author's theory of blackmail, because that's not legal. We're asked to find something legal. Okay, so really the only thing they mention here that's legal is, in some instances, I have the legal right to seek money, but they don't really say when. Okay, fine. So that's one instance where you could derive support to infer that an act is legal under U.S. and Canadian common law. Now, the other place is if I threaten to expose a criminal act or embarrassing private information, right? Here it says the right to free speech protects my right to make such a disclosure. So that's referring back to both of these things. Either expose a criminal act or embarrassing private information. So both of those are protected under free speech. So that's the only other place that you could possibly find something that's legal under Canadian and U.S. common law. Okay, so now you just need to process the answer choices and find what is legal. Is bribing tax officials in order to avoid paying taxes, is that protected under U.S.? No, it's not. It's not asking for money for whatever unstated reason, nor is it a free speech to expose criminal act or embarrassing private. You're just bribing a tax official. So no, get out of here. That's not legal. A says revealing to public authorities that a high-ranking military officer has embezzled funds from the military budget. Well, yeah, there my free speech protects my right to make a disclosure about a criminal activity, which is what this is. This is a criminal activity, embezzlement, like a general embezzles some funds. So definitely B stays. B is legal under U.S. Canadian common law. At this point, I hope you see that even having reduced our workload by about 50%, it's still a little bit challenging. You still have to deal with the double negative. You still have to really clarify this kind of confusing question stem to derive clear instructions out of it, right? Which the clear instructions that we're keeping an answer choice if it's legal under Canadian U.S. common law. Otherwise, we're getting rid of it. Okay, so this one is legal under U.S. Canadian law, so we're keeping it. This one, I have no idea. I mean, just appealing to the passage, I have no idea. Appealing to my common sense, I'm pretty sure bribing is not legal, but whatever. Appealing to the passage, I have no idea, so I'm getting rid of it. C says testifying in court to a defendant's innocence while knowing that the defendant's guilty. Oh, so you just mean perjury. They wasted all these words to just say perjury, right? Okay, perjury, is that legal or I don't know, right? I mean, again, I'm pretty sure just common sense is not legal, but according to the passage, we have no information because it's neither this disclosure of a criminal act or embarrassing private information, nor is it this thing to right to seek money. So I just have no idea. It's gone. D says informing a government tax agency, the IRS, that once employers have concealed their true income. Okay, so employers are underreporting income, underpaying taxes, and that's a crime. And now you are informing the IRS of that. Well, that's a disclosure of a criminal act. So that is protected. So that is legal. That's like answer choice B. And lastly, E says revealing to the public that a prominent politician had once had an adulterous affair. Okay, well, that's this making a disclosure about embarrassing private information, right? So that is also protected by your free speech rights. So good. So processing question 18 like this, we're down to B, we're down to D, and we're down to E. And we'll come back to this later after having read passage B, and then we'll deal with the other half of the question stem to figure out what passage B's instructions are. Question 19 is an analogy question between Canadian U.S. common law on the one hand and classical Roman law on the other hand, and how they deal with blackmail. So yeah, I think this is definitely something we should do later. I think it'll just be kind of a waste of our time to go through each answer choice now. We don't even know what B is going to talk about. Okay, so let's read passage B.